is moving toward technology orphanage. That if you look at the research resource intensity in South Asia, it is one of the lowest. We are spending less than 0.4% of our GDP as a region of GDP agriculture on this technology. And technology generation these days is becoming very, very costly. Can we think of regional alliances and things like that? That is another thing. Then again, coming to addressing the trade, doing the trade to address this instability, I would like to emphasize again, someone said in the morning that if you want to address instability efficiently through trade, you need to have regional supply chain. It should not be that suddenly you find that you are short trays of something, then local trader, they try to establish link and all those kind of things. I think if we have regional supply chain, then that can help us in taking advantage of this addressing this supply fluctuation in each country and taking advantage of it and addressing that more efficiently. So rather than India looking to, say, Portugal or India looking to Europe to address instability in many commodities, India looking to Pakistan and vice versa. That will be beneficial to both the countries. Otherwise, in the case of India, we are just finding that our production trend of most of the commodities except edible oil, pulses and fruit is now higher than what is our demand trend. And even with fluctuation, we are no more finding it the need to import many commodities. Cereal is one of the examples that now our cereal production is so high compared to our demand that even if it fluctuates, production comes down, we don't feel like importing cereals. So those opportunities are gone. Similar kind of thing in sugar also seems to have gone. So if Pakistan really wants to tap Indian market, it has to look at those kind of high value products, fruit and vegetables and things like that. So I stop with that. Maybe there will be some question. I will address the issue raised by chairman during that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Very refreshing to see that we must identify the comparative advantage do we have, or is it a seasonal variation that is filling the gap, the trade that scope and regional supply chains. May I now invite Professor Hoda to give us the benefit of his expertise on the issue. Professor Hoda is currently the Chair Professor of Trade Policy and WTO Research Program at ICRIA. As most of you know, from 2004 to 9, he was Member Planning Commission, and he has been handling a number of issues in the Planning Commission from industry, trade, transport, infrastructure, urban development. But I think we are looking forward to his experience from WTO. He was the Deputy Director General at WTO, and all the political economy as well as the technical thing on the question of trade negotiations and subsidies in particular, that's what we look forward to. Dr. Hoda, please.
Thank you. After the very comprehensive and wide-ranging presentation by Dr. Ramesh Chand, mine is a very narrowly focused one, and I'm looking at a subject which is of importance, but which is not as wide-ranging in its implication. My remit is very limited. I understand that there is, and I know that there is a certain amount of discomfort in Pakistan with the domestic support levels in agriculture in India. And I have been asked to offer suggestions on how the fears of producers in Pakistan on this account could be addressed. We all know that we have really two types of domestic support programs. One is the import support on fertilizers, water, power, and most people are unaware on agricultural credit. The other one is the minimum support price backed by government agency purchases. Now, it is little comfort, it may be little comfort to producers in Pakistan that our claim is that the domestic programs, support programs for agriculture that we have in India is very much WTO consistent. It is of a little comfort on the other side of the border because their concern is that even if it is WTO consistent, it might be having some price distortive, trade distorting effect. What can therefore be done? Could we have an agreement within SAFTA on moderation of subsidy programs in India? Let me mention that although we have more than 500 regional trade agreements across the world, to my knowledge, it has not been found feasible to deal substantially with domestic support programs in agriculture in any one of them. In fact, the negotiations on a free trade area agreement between Brazil and USA collapsed. I mean, two premier agricultural countries collapsed many years back when the latter, that the United States declared that it was not conceivable for it to discuss domestic support programs in within a regional trade agreement. It is equally unthinkable that India would agree to discuss within SAFTA the tightening of disciplines laid down in the WTO agreement. Even if India found it feasible to reduce its subsidies without affecting producer interests, it would regard it as wise to make any commitment only multilaterally rather than in a regional agreement. How then can we address the concerns of trading partners who fear that producer interests would be jeopardized if subsidized products were to be allowed to be imported duty-free or even at reduced rates? The SAFTA agreement already has a general safeguard clause which allows temporary suspension of concessions if investigations show that serious injury is being caused to domestic producers. There is also the generally available WTO provision of imposing countervailing duties if material injury is caused by the subsidized products. But in the case of agricultural products, it's not practicable to enter into lengthy investigations in order to impose duties, in order to protect protect domestic producers from injury. A much more practical proposition is what is known as the special agricultural safeguard. In the WTO agreement, we already have one. We already had one. It was a safeguard provision which allowed those countries which had converted non-tariff measures into tariffs to impose duties if certain price or volume trigger of imports were met. Now, this safeguard provision is being phased out, but another one is being introduced. I think there is agreement within the Doha round that that developing countries would be allowed to have special agricultural safeguards, although there is no meeting of minds on the elements of these provisions. Now, what we need within the SAFTA is something that is not there at present, is a special agricultural safeguard provision, which allows the parties to SAFTA to impose tariffs, special tariffs, temporarily if the prices fall or if the volume of import increases above a trigger level. The merit of such a special safeguard provision is that it can be invoked without any investigation on serious injury. It has flexibility and automaticity in its application. I might add, however, that parties may decide to put limits on the height of the safeguard tariff. Normally, it would be expected that the safeguard measure would be applied temporarily. A special safeguard for agriculture can be applied when parties to the agreement decide to eliminate the tariff or when they decide to only reduce the tariff. The SAFTA agreement has been notified under the WTO's enabling clause, and it is quite consistent with the WTO that the tariffs are only reduced, not eliminated, within a free trade area agreement. Once such a safeguard provision is introduced in the SAFTA agreement, the parties could take a decision to reduce the tariff on certain products with a shallow linear cut and then follow it up in the next sort of when the next period for liberalization arrives with more ambitious, deeper cuts. Special agricultural safeguard is not the only way of protecting producer interests. The experience of countries around the world with FTAs shows that there are other ways of doing it. A number of regional agreements have allowed recourse to tariff rate quota. That is, tariffs are reduced within a quota, either on a time-limited basis or without any time limit. I think I read in one of the papers that have been circulated a reference to NAFTA, the North Atlantic Free Trade Area. The impression given is that perhaps this is a unique agreement in which agriculture has been treated differently. That is not the case. All that NAFTA has done is to allow for tariff rate quotas. Most of these quotas were eliminated after a certain number of years, but some, especially by Canada on poultry products and by the United States on sugar, dairy and cotton, they are continuing. So, it is a common practice to protect producer interest, not only through agricultural safeguards, but also through tariff rate quotas. Liberalization in an FTA agreement can be envisaged without any special agricultural safeguards, but by having a time-limited or permanent tariff rate quota. Now, the advantage of tariff rate quota is that the floodgates are not opened. You have the opportunity to observe how much damage it is causing and how much welfare it is causing if limited imports are allowed. And then you can take further decision. Whenever a tariff rate quota is established, the parties may either reduce the in-quota tariff, the tariff within the quota is called in-quota tariff. If the general MFN tariff is, say, 20%, the in-quota tariff may be 10%, and they may decide to liberalize this 10% by further reducing it to reaching zero while maintaining the tariff rate quota. The other way of progressive liberalization is to retain the in-quota tariff at the level that is intended, but to expand the quota itself. In brief, there are at least 4 options open for importing countries if it fears that its producer interests may suffer because of the level of domestic support in a partner country. An underlying assumption is that there is a general willingness to expand trade. If there is no willingness to expand trade, then you might as well keep it exempted. But if there is, then this is the way to try. First, introduce a special agricultural safeguard, which is automatic in its application if certain price or volume triggers are met. Second, introduce a transitional tariff rate quota, which may be terminated after a number of years and fully liberalized. Or introduce a tariff rate quota which may be progressively liberalized but retained almost permanently thereafter. Fourth, have special agricultural safeguards or tariff rate quota, both the measures. So I have concluded this presentation on the options available to importing countries on protection of producer interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hoda. This was very useful. In a very distilled fashion, what policy options are there to take care of the concerns of subsidization at one end. Now we have our esteemed speaker right here from Pakistan, Dr. Usman Khan, and may I request him to give his presentation. Dr. Usman Khan is presently faculty member at Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS. Started his professional career in banking and investment consulting in